Yeah, thanks Alex and Bradley for jumping on and helping us with this last webinar of the three-part series that we're putting on, sponsored by the WRI organization. We are looking to go over some of the specifications that folks would need to execute their electric school bus plans. So Alex is here today to talk through for folks who are getting ready or sort of interested in what it takes to order an electric school bus and some of the considerations that are different from an internal combustion bus. Alex is here to talk through what that ordering process looks like, those specifications that are unique to electric school buses, and here to answer any questions that folks have about the capabilities and the specifications for those buses. And then we have Bradley Baker Barker here from Highland Fleets, and Highland offers a sort of concierge service for folks to help them with implementing their charging solutions. So that is sort of cradle to grave from planning and setup to ongoing maintenance and operations. So this charging in particular is probably the most unique setup for folks who are implementing electric school buses because it's something they really haven't done before. Driving an electric school bus at the end of the day, you're still driving a bus, you're still driving the routes, but the charging is really pretty unique and different from what school bus operators are currently doing. And Bradley's going to help us talk through what it takes to plan out electric charging infrastructure and the ongoing maintenance. And he's also going to talk through some of the services that Highlands can provide if folks decide they want to try to outsource some of those solutions. So thank you both for coming on. And Alex, why don't you get things kicked off?
All right, thanks again, Clayton. I appreciate the opportunity. I definitely didn't want to make this to be too much of a sales pitch, so I tried to keep the information on the vehicles as generic as possible. Just some things to kind of look out for when specing out your EV vehicles. I've added some slides that have some additional equipment that we think looks really good on the. So some of them may be aesthetic choices, but they are. For an EV vehicle, I mean, we're kind of looking to upfit these vehicles with the best and the safest equipment possible. So I just have some information I want to kind of go through this with all of you. First thing is this kind of came through at the beginning of the year through one of my customers up at Elko County. This is now a regulation in Nevada, so the blue reflective tape front and rear bumpers. They need to have some blue reflection on them, but also it came down the pike that they need to have it running down the sides as well. So this is a spec that you definitely for Nevada you want to talk to your current bus manufacturers, anyone that you're working with, because this is going to be a standard spec that will be uh, that will need to be on every vehicle that is delivered. So there's just a little example of those vehicles and what those reflective tapes look like.
And that's a safety thing, right, Alex? So that
Yeah, it's really put into place to identify the vehicle and make sure the vehicle is easily identifiable as an EV. A lot of that is for obviously for first responders, for highway patrol, things like that. They kind of want to know what they're dealing with when they get into that vehicle, when they're servicing that vehicle in any way. So it's just an indicator for us to know exactly what is powering that bus. Um, AC systems. So this is something that we know with every manufacturer when you're dealing with AC systems, when you're dealing with heater systems, they can be a true draw on the battery. I think the metrics we were talking about and what we hear is, anywhere between 20 to 25% right off the top when it comes to utilizing your heat or utilizing your AC. It just obviously depends on your area. So we do have fully ducted ACs. This is something that we've been putting in a lot of our buses. This actually cools down the buses. It just evenly distributes that air throughout the bus, so you don't have the front and the rear air kind of pushing it through the bus. This kind of gets circulated throughout the bus. So this is definitely something that helps. with that draw because that AC is being circulated a little more evenly. So this is something that you kind of want to look at when speccing out your bus. This is just kind of another uh, view of that fully ducted AC system. Um, Now, a lot of school buses these days, especially the EV school bus world, they don't have a lot of storage space. Usually, a lot of the undercarriage storage is taken up by batteries, is taken up by your componentry for your EVs. So this is an elegant solution that some of our partners in the AC world have come up with, a fully ducted AC with storage compartments as well. So you can kind of see the way this is built. You have storage up at the top, enough for backpacks, purses, things like that. You're obviously not getting, band equipment or football equipment in this, but it is just kind of another elegant way that you can spec out your bus to have the things you need. Even though it is an EV that has its limitations, you can still spec out this bus to give you certain things you need, like storage. This is something we've been putting on all of our new EV school buses. Again, this is more an aesthetic choice, but it is a safety feature, and the product is like no other. So are doing the illuminated school bus signs right now. We are prepping some EV buses for a few of the school districts in Nevada, and we're going to be doing illuminated school bus signs on them as well. So again, you can kind of see the difference between your school bus now and the way that your school books looks like with the illuminated school bus sign. I did leave First Light Safety Products in here. They are the manufacturers of this. I don't really know how many other manufacturers are doing this right now, but they are our partner with this particular system. They also do, oh, I'm so sorry. They're also doing the illuminated stop signs. This is something we're putting on all our buses as well. Again, you can kind of see on the left-hand side of the screen what your stop sign, standard stop sign looks like now versus the one on the right-hand side. Again, on an EV vehicle, if we're going, we want to outfit this with the best equipment and the newest safety equipment possible. This is definitely something that we've been putting on all of our vehicles. The visibility is just like no other. This is something that we ran into, and I wanted to make sure that I touched base on this because we had started prepping buses for a customer in California that required snow chains. Well, we went through three different manufacturers because of the way that the batteries and the motors sat on these EV vehicles. We went through three different manufacturers before we found one that could retrofit a kit for us. So if snow chains is something that you require for your vehicles and you're going to be putting them on EV vehicles, a lot of times it takes reworking and re-engineering of these brackets, the systems and the design. So this is something you want to get in front of your chain manufacturer, your chain supplier as early as possible. You want to get them the specs of the vehicle. You want to know how low that vehicle sits. You want to know where the batteries are, where the motors are, and how that will affect the mounting of these components on this bus. Like I said, we ran into it already on a couple of with a couple manufacturers. OnSpot in particular, their re-engineering was told us that was going to take, roughly a year. So there are other manufacturers that do chains, but this is something you definitely want to get in front of your bus manufacturer and in front of the chain manufacturer as early as possible if it's something that you require on your EV vehicles.
I think we were talking to Craig last week from Beaverton School Districts, and I don't think he was under the impression that this was even possible at all. He sort of indicated that they hadn't found a solution for this. So it sounds like this fairly new that you guys have been able to work with these suppliers and figure out the solution, Alex?
Yeah, last year, it was actually at the end of last year, and we had to rework one of the systems. They actually sent out their engineers. I'm sorry, for the chain manufacturer, they sent out their chain engineers to our site and worked with our team to create a kit that would work for these buses. So it is fairly new. Like I said, there are manufacturers out there that said that their engineering teams, would take roughly a year, 6 months to a year to get a new design in. we obviously put the pressure in the right place because these buses needed to be delivered. So we were able to get some additional help with this, but it's something again that you want to put in front of your the bus manufacturer and the chain manufacturer as soon as possible. So as you are looking through what kinds of buses that you're looking for, you're looking at speccing those things out. If you know you need chains, those are the first things you want to grab is dimensions, your full spec sheets, drawings that you can clearly see what kind of clearance you have. Just get them involved right away because it's not impossible. It's not something that they're not going to be able to do. It's just going to take them some time to rework and re-engineer.
And this is something they could do in a retrofit scenario, right? Like someone already has their buses. Yeah.
100%, 100%. And what they're doing is they are actively retrofitting their own kits. So if they have a kit already that is built for a ICE engine transit bus, at that point, it just takes us again looking at the specs of the EV version of that same vehicle and finding out how these chain manufacturers can kind of redesign their current kits to fit those buses.
Awesome. Thanks.
So this is something that you definitely want to get involved in as quickly as possible when specking out those buses. Obviously, I'm going to let Bradley speak more about charging specifically. I just wanted to bring it up in regards to vehicle type and in regards to where charging ports lie on any particular vehicle. It's very important. We've run into this before where a district had gone and they had set up all of their chargers and they didn't really take into account that the charging ports on the buses were offset on the driver's side, and they had all of their chargers kind of sitting in the middle of the space when they should have been kind of offset to make sure they reached all those vehicles. So this is something I just kind of wanted to bring up. Obviously, I'll let Bradley speak to chargers themselves specifically, but these are kind of ideas. What you have like single gun type chargers here, the duals. And then again, you kind of want to be aware of the way this works because here are some bus types. Type A, typically these charging ports are on the driver's side where the driver door is. Typically, we've been seeing that there. For the Type Cs, they're either in the rear here, you can see this charging port in the rear, or they're up here toward the front. Some manufacturers may put them on the very front of the grill. So again, these are things that you kind of need to spec out with your bus manufacturers while you are building out your infrastructure. For the Type D, we've either seen them on both sides. They're either on the passenger side in the rear or on the driver's side in the rear. Some manufacturers have them again in the front as well. So there are different areas that manufacturers will allow you to put that charging port. And it's very important to make sure that you are understanding what type of charges you're getting and where they're going to be sitting in your yard. So infrastructure and knowing where these charge ports are, they go hand in hand. And so these are the types that we typically deal with. Obviously, we have the Type C, we have the type, which is our conventional model, the Type A, which is usually our cutaways, and then we have our Type Ds as well. Vans, lots of EV vans we're starting to see kind of go into the marketplace as well. Vans usually, typically on the Fords, their charging port is right here in the front. All of these vehicles that I showed you are AC, DC, AC and DC fast charge enabled. They have the ability to do both. Um, and the chargers really, obviously, again, Brad will speak to this, but you're going to want to know from your manufacturer how many kilowatts your bus can take in at any given time. So for international, I know that bus can take in 120, 130 kilowatts. Same thing for the ride buses. And really, your infrastructure is only going to be successful if you have the type of chargers that are gonna dispense what you need for your any given day. So it's always easy to look at a number and say these slow chargers are cheaper, so let's just get these. But they may not do what you need them to do for your routes. So it's always important to remember that although the easiest The easiest plan may be just to hook up some slow chargers with your existing infrastructure. You need to understand what your route demand is going to be, what your energy demand is going to be, and what you truly want out of these buses. Your infrastructure is just as important. And as far as that goes, that's pretty much everything I put together for some EV specs, some additional specs that you can entertain from your manufacturers, and then also things that safety features that you might want to upfit your vehicles with. Are there any questions or anything else I can share or speak to in regards to school buses and school bus specs?
Hey Seth, just because we have you on the line, if you're there, I don't know if you could share any experience you had in ordering your bus and anything unique to Nevada that came up for you.
Yeah, not a whole lot that Alex didn't cover, just the marking standard that kind of changed from when we ordered to now the delivery's here with the blue stripe and stuff. But yeah, other than that, it was just kind of the same thing, just going through, looking at all the different options, manufacturers, and then ultimately we ended up going through Alex there with the ride buses. So just a lot of discussion with him over options and what was available and things like that. So
Sounds
And if I can add to that as well, Seth really did a lot of his research when it came to the vehicles. Not only that, we went and visited the shop. He came down and checked out the buses as we're prepping them as well. And again, to me, that level of investment is what's needed on any EV program. Um, you're going to want to be invested. You're going to want to understand the technology, understand the chargers, and understand what you're getting into because it is a big investment from the district. But if it's rolled out the correct way, it can also be a huge benefit to the district as well. But it takes buy-in. When you're starting a new EV program, it takes buy-in from the district, and I know that Seth has been a champion for us as well and for the product. He's really, but he's had a ton of input as well. So that's what really I think differentiates a successful rollout versus one that that you can have that you wish for more. The successful rollouts are usually the ones where people are invested in the process and invested in the electrification plan.
awesome. Thanks, Alex.
No problem. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing this for now. But if you have any questions, obviously there's my email, there's my phone number. Please feel free to reach out at any time. Um, and thanks again for the time, Clayton. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And we can share your info in the email follow up too. So,
Perfect.
Bradley, hopefully it's as easy the second time to pull it up.
Yeah, let's do it. I will share my screen. Let me know if you all see this okay.
Yeah.
It's good.
Um, one second here. Is that the slideshow? Yeah, there we go. I think that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, you're all set.
All
Thanks.
right. Thank you. Thank you again, Clayton, Tina, for allowing me to come on and just share some info about infrastructure. Well done, Alex. Appreciate that. So I'm just gonna start off by telling you a little bit about Highland, just so you have some background of who I am and what I'm doing, and really about credibility from our company from a nationwide perspective. I see Alex a lot in Northern Cal just based on our territory overlap, but Highland is a turnkey electrification service provider helping districts electrify their fleets. We, excuse me, a little bit about our history. We're founded in 2019, active really across the entire United States and Canada. And to date, we've helped districts secure over $800 million in grants. That would be federal grants, state grants, utility make-ready programs, local air quality grants. So one of the biggest hurdles in this electrification journey for districts often is the capital and the cost of the vehicles and the infrastructure. So we currently run the largest school bus fleet in on the East Coast. Our company's based in the Boston area, and we also have a very nice office in Colorado, and operating over 1,200 school buses right now under contract. So my intent here too is to come sort of do what Alex did, just come back and not pitch Highland so much as just start to understand what infrastructure looks at. But I wanted to give you an idea of a heat map of our customer base, and you can see up in the Northeast, we have a lot of customers, which is where a lot of our activity started. But in California, where I reside in the Anaheim area, in Southern California, we've added several customers over the last couple of years, and we're growing. So looking forward to what this might look like over the next year and a half.
And not to toot your horn too
Yeah.
much, but you guys are running the Olympics bus circuit,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, sir. Thank you. We were recently selected as the official transportation provider for the LA 28 Olympics. We're going to be using buses to transport administrators, referees, basically everyone else except the athletes. Maybe even a few athletes we'll soon find out, but to over 40 venues in Southern California. So we've already met with the Olympic Committee, actually even did a teach-in at their facility, and they were showing us the preliminary details of how they're going to isolate freeways for for the movement of all the people involved with I should say lanes on freeways. So they're going to be actual lanes that are designated for moving people around to the Olympics. But yeah, thank you, Clayton. That helps us with some other, maybe I can get back to that in a minute, but that helps us with the proactive rate or relationships with the utilities and what they're doing to help us get those customers um, onboarded quickly so we can support the games. So, in talking about electrification, just in general, and I too welcome questions even mid conversation here if that's easier for you. Just wanted to talk about some of the challenges that you will probably come up against. One of them is affordability. The high upfront costs are probably the largest hurdle. I see Alex shaking his head. Yeah, we know like that's usually the biggest speed bump is the cost of this stuff right now. We're hoping that this that the costs in time will come down and level out, maybe even get into a little more of a parity with internal combustion engines. But the high upfront costs, both of the buses and the infrastructure, a lot goes into the infrastructure, including the non-bus school costs, would mean chargers, switchgear, time spent, resources spent with utilities, permitting other vendors, and then you have the actual construction, the entire construction of the infrastructure. Since we're building out your fuel station, if you would, and with a diesel bus, that fuel station is usually somewhere else and can be on site as well at the yard. But cost uncertainty is certainly something that can be a little bit of a an unknown to districts and CBOs, and Highland's here to help with those things, and there are other or those aspects of building out a depot. Risk and reliability, financial risk for sure. There's a lot of upfront costs, especially in year one. If there's deltas between maybe subsidies that you are anticipating getting, whether that's state, federal, or make ready. Generally, it's not fully capitalized, although it can be. We in the industry we call that stacking. So we can stack federal grants and state grants often. Each one of the grants generally have very unique aspects and details that you need to follow, meaning implementation times, post-award reporting requirements, etc. So financial risk is something to consider. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that at the end of the presentation about what Highland does from a turnkey perspective and how we sort of mitigate that. But the technology risk is always something to be concerned about, and not a bad concern, but just aware of. There have been several For instance, charger companies, and Alex has seen this too, any of us in this industry that have come into this space, touting a nice, technology, and then within 4 or 5 or 6 months, they're out of the space, so they're gone, for whatever that reason is, whether it's financial, whether it's technology. But the technology is moving so fast. We have some really nice technologies coming into this space, for instance, with vehicle to grid and building to grid. But even DC fast chargers have really come a long way from a communication perspective. And it allows companies like Highland, when we need to interface with the communications of, on the bus, telemetrics, GPS, these DC fast chargers are really helping us with that data intake and providing real-time data to the districts when the buses are even on the road. And then there used to be this reluctance to be first. I think we're getting past this a little bit. I've been with Highland for 3 years. I think my first year I saw this a lot as the Gen 1 buses sort of hit the field slightly before I came on board 3 years ago. But there's a lot of districts that have begun to electrify their fleets, and I think this is starting to subside, but could be a challenge for some districts, especially if it's your first phase in of, two, three, or four or five buses. So complexity, a big one. There's a lot of complexity in electrification. The good news is, districts, we have some very, very good vendor partners that have expertise that can help walk by your side and meet you where you're at to get these electrification or this process started and completed and functioning properly, with a high uptime. That's what we're looking for. So grants and funding, Highland has a full grant writing team. We have to, in order to secure that much funding for our customers. But grants and funding are super important. Um, with the high capital costs, anything we can do to cost down the project is certainly in the best interest of the district, especially with budgets, dropping, and as of late. And then, I spoke a little bit about bus and charger technology. The chargers talk to the buses. The buses have their own software, and those softwares require, updates and changes at times too, because the OEMs are doing a very nice job at making things better day by day and how they communicate with the chargers and how the buses operate. So you have two pieces of technology that need to communicate with one another, and then a third piece of technology. For instance, if you are Highland's FleetX software, where it has telemetrics and charge management, with an open API interface. So something that, vendors are very familiar with, districts might not be, but the right vendor choice is important, and so that we can help you move forward with the project. And then ongoing operations, of course, learning how to maintain the buses, the chargers, changing out filters. We work closely with the dealers on the bus side. They're the experts with the on the buses. So a nice collaborative effort when we're training districts on how to take care of the electric buses. So here's I'm gonna talk a little bit here. This is really where it all begins, and what we I can't say it enough. Whether or not you have electric buses now or you're planning to phase in electrification into your fleet, start planning your approach. The planning part of this is tremendously important. I have some examples here, but number of buses in your fleet. What is your sort of your natural buying process, or with buses aging out? What sort of phase-in approach would we like to take, whether you have 5, 10, or 50 or 75 buses? Any special needs with wheelchairs and et cetera, the bus dealers can help with that. Type of weather you're dealing with, is it hot and cold? Topography. So those are the things that Highland talks about with their customers well in front of the depot being built out, and the choices for the routes, as far as route lengths, the choices chargers, whether you're not DC, you need DC fast charging. Alex said on that a little bit earlier, or maybe you need a level two charger because you're only running routes, that are 10 or 15 miles a day, and those would be sufficient. How the power, what the power looks like on the site. Does the utility need to bring a transformer in? What type of switchgear do we need? Highland and other vendors will help with all of that. It's very complex, sort of can be overwhelming, but it's very much accomplishable with working with the right partners. So funding, I have a little box down here for funding. Funding for me is something that really should be a motivator to start electrifying now, even if you feel like you may or may not be ready. Phase in a few electric buses, understand the environmental impacts, the cost impacts, the total cost of ownership dropping is something that you're going to see. But funding is going to help do that. And slowly but surely, the funding amounts are starting to drop. So if we were to look at a graph, we would see the trend starting to drop from the perspective of the allocated subsidies per grant round, whether it's a rebate or competitive bid. But the funding is still available right now, and by the way, the EPA is going to release another funding round with some details in May. So if you want to get a hold of me and talk about that a little bit, I'll be more than happy to give you what I know now on that. Stackable with state grants and utility make readies. So then, how you use the money. We've talked about this a bit, but bus and charger purchases, of course, resources. You may need to add a couple people if you're not using a turnkey solution to manage the depot, charge management, communication protocols, under troubleshooting fault codes that are coming through, and also training. There needs to be, a not overly complex, but a nice training process put in place so the mechanics and the drivers get very familiar with the buses. And you'll soon, in my experience, you will see them really start to, like driving and working with the electric buses. So your vendor partnership should really look to this, 1 through 6. A vendor partner that can help you plan, design, and implement the entire project. Very, very important site configuration, the movement of the buses, where the chargers are going to be located, how they're going to be mounted, and what types of chargers are you going to use. Pick a vendor that can walk through and sit down and have time with you to walk through your routes, your route lengths, your duty cycles, so that we can cost down the project as much as we can, but also future-proof for you and use the right chargers. A DC fast charger is gonna be able to get that bus and or white feet vehicle to a full charge a lot quicker than a level one or level two charge, especially if you need midday charging. So super important that your vendor has expertise in that. And then budget, apply for grants, get this money so that you can cost down the project. A budget that really encompasses all aspects of your fleet for sure. And then the build out, traditional EPC providers come in and build out the depot for you. Uh, Select chargers and then teach you how to use the charger software rather, and then go into more or less of a service ticket relationship. Highland does not do that. We actually stick with our vendors through the duration of the contract, so we manage the charging for you. I can talk a lot more about that, either one-on-one or aside from this webinar. But yeah, you definitely want expertise in building out the depots and what to look for and how to work with the utilities and putting in the right equipment. And then vendors that have relationships with your Model Ones of the world and the dealers. We spend a lot of time together, Alex and I, up in North at conferences, events, and doing training like this. So we're a lot of collaboration between dealers and infrastructure providers. So something to consider. And then how will that training come along with from the perspective of new scope of work or new processes with the EVs, so that you can bring people and onboard people on how to use the equipment effectively. And then charging, I spoke a little bit about this already, but charge management is very, very important. If you're charging one or two buses midday from 3 to 7 during peak demand hours, you're still going to pay more for fuel or electricity than you would if you were charging maybe from midnight to 4. But for sure, if your fleet size 50, 75, 100, your electric bill is going to jump tremendously if you're charging when the electricity is at its peak cost. So charge management is something, and an effective platform is very, very important. And also, I would say, look at a charge management platform, not only a company that might be able to do that for you, so that you don't have to have the resources, but also a platform where it has an open API interface that we can utilize that can utilize different technologies as a technology surface. We're the front-facing platform to the district or to the city or whoever it is stays the same, so that the work and the communication behind the scenes is being done by your vendor, and your team is seeing the same thing day in and day out, and comfortable with the platform that they're using. But managing that charging will cost down the overall total cost of ownership tremendously. I will share that there's one in particular district that I was working with that had I believe, over 80 buses that was spending over $30,000 a month in electricity, and that's improper charge management. So we're going to help them with, we're going to.
How much did they save? So if it was 30, do you have any sense of like how much they were able to bring that down?
Yeah, and Highland's going to help provide that charge management with our FleetX platform, our charge management platform. We're anticipating our goal is to reduce that our goal is to reduce it by 50%, but if we could get in the neighborhood of 40%, even 30, that's a tremendous amount of money monthly that can go back into the transportation program. So
Yeah, super helpful. I think just like a general order of magnitude of what potential savings there are there, because you're not going to save half of your diesel fuel costs, by switching to a different vendor or something. This is like kind of a unique thing to electric. Um,
yes, very unique. And you want a platform that gives the district optionality to new technology. So as these chargers will go out in anywhere from 6 to 8 years usually. Heat and intense heat and direct sunlight can affect the overall length of time that a charger can operate. So can the cold to some degree. So 6 to 8 years, you're going to be putting new chargers in. Might not be the same brand of charger next time. So the last thing you want, if you have a large fleet or even 20 or 25, I say large thinking 50, 75, 100, but the last thing you want is a hodgepodge of software, depending on the bus brands that you're choosing and the number of different types of chargers that you have. So you want that to be seamless, in its integration. So I have that little yellow strip at the bottom. Consider vendors that have proven expertise with building out depots and also, oops, sorry, are financially sound. There's been several companies that have come into this space and just couldn't make it and left. So, do a little homework on the background of the company and their financials, and are they going to be around for the long run? That's important. So everything that I just spoke about, making the electric project affordable is a top priority, both from the dealers selling the bus perspective and from our perspective on the infrastructure. We want to cost this project down as much as possible. But if you look at the left side of this in the gray, representing the total cost of the project, stacking grants and incentives, scaling contracts, that are a little more untraditional from 3 to 5 years, maybe out to 10 to 12 years, where Highland, and we can help you with the upfront capital, um, tax credits and depreciation, advanced depreciation, even vehicle to grid, where we're pushing energy back into the grid. It's getting better and better. The technologies is growing, the popularity of it for sure. and you can get money back from the utility, and then maintenance and fuel savings. When you stack these savings and costs down the project, that's our goal. And right now, those subsidies are available to us. So it's important to stay on top of those, and even plan. Just plan, if we were to consider a phase-in approach, what would that look like? Plan it out. Come to Highland. Let us work with you on the modeling and what it would look like. We're not going to charge you anything, and we can talk to you about everything you need to talk about from an infrastructure perspective, or another vendor of your choice. So this is my only slide that I have specifically on Highland. I wanted to do this because our approach is a little bit different than the traditional, what we call procure, construct, or EPC provider. Highland is a turnkey solution, meaning you have one vendor that does everything for you from looking for the funding and putting together contracts with contingencies on those subsidies, the project planning from start to finish. We work very intimately with the district. Even the vehicle procurement, what type of vehicles do you need and what you're looking for, and those interactions with the Model Ones of the world and the dealers, permitting and installation, the conversations with the utilities on power and what their make-ready programs consist of, and the post-award reporting requirements, and digging up the conduit and actually installing the chargers and commissioning them, all of that. Highland takes that all on its shoulders, including the charge management, so that we drive those fuel costs down, if you would, those electric costs down year over year. One of the things that we guarantee is a 97% uptime. A huge thing to be aware of. You don't want to get the buses in if at all possible. You don't want to have buses land before the infrastructure is ready. And if they do, a short period of time is okay, but you want to plan that out so that your infrastructure is ready to charge those buses, and have the right foundation in place so the uptime on those vehicles is very high and they're ready to go day by day. And the other thing I wanted to make note of is, Highland. When you work with Highland, we actually have a large financing arm of our company that will help with all the upfront capital, and districts do not have one penny of out of pocket until the depot is built out and the buses are at the yard and ready to be used. So that's very unique to our offering as well. And I'll leave it at that. I could go on much more about our turnkey service, but just wanted to point out some of the differences and what a turnkey service might look like versus a traditional engineer, procure, construct provider, where they build it out and then it becomes more of a service ticket relationship. And that is all that I have today. Here's my contact information, bradley.barker@highlandfleets.com. There's my phone number. Clayton has all this as well. So if for whatever reason you don't have this, please reach out, even if I can just be a resource to you and answers any questions. Glad to help.
Thanks, Bradley. Really appreciate it. And any questions out there? Um, Seth, I don't mean to call on you, but did you guys ever consider having a third party vendor come in and support you guys with your charging? I know you're doing sort of a unique setup with Xcel Energy and their V2G program, but I don't know if Seth's still there.
Yeah, I'm still here, Clayton. No, I never really looked at it because we kind of started there with their energy provider doing their in that B2G program. So
Mhm.
I mean, very early, you're talking 4 or 5 years ago, I think I spoke to some third parties about charging infrastructure when we were first looking at this, but
Mhm.
then we got involved with that B2G program, and so I haven't done any further research in that area.
Got it.
That's excellent though, Seth. Just getting in front of that, working with the utility is probably one of the first things that any district needs to prioritize. That's great. The utilities have some nice make-ready programs that can help, again, cost down the projects for the districts.
Hey, Bradley, is there like a minimum fleet size that you guys would consider working with?
No, we've done one and two bus projects, and we've done, we have a 300 bus depot that we manage. Recently, we just uh, signed a contract for a 90 bus fleet, almost 50 of them new. So at one time, so it's all over. The idea really is just correlating it to your fleet size. In California, of course, there is a schedule and a mandate for electrification. So, we're always considering that time frame, and what it might look like if you have 100 buses in California. You need to start looking at a phase and approach now to understand how much power that you need to bring in, start working with the utility, understanding what it's like to manage a fleet of electric buses, and what vendors are going to help you do that. But otherwise, in Nevada, I don't think there is any mandates. To my knowledge, there's not, from a perspective of electrification. So this is really just districts that are, understand the environmental aspects, and the impacts on students, you know, riding in an electric bus that has way less noise, low NOx, and carbon reductions are so much less, and how the EVs really impact the environment from that perspective. So that is probably the most important thing that we don't talk about enough, is the environmental impact. But certainly the total cost of ownership on EVs is a lot less than diesels for a number of reasons, but mainly because there's 90% less moving parts. So, yep. If it's done correctly, right, Alex? It's got to be done correctly. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, would there be any concerns with Highland like being able to support a rural district in Nevada with just a couple school buses? Would you guys have the ability to support that?
Yeah, we would. We would have the ability to support that. The way that we structure our contracts, really it fixes the budgets for the district. So it's one price per vehicle per year, and then it's all encompassing. We have a couple different products, meaning where we can own the buses, or we don't need to own the buses, and we just own the infrastructure that's depot. But the idea is it's a little bit easier to spread the cost out of infrastructure over five vehicles than it is, five buses than it is one, if that makes sense. But that's just a
Yeah,
cost perspective. From a
yeah,
perspective of being remote, as long as there's adequate power, and there's an adequate in a reasonable way to get to where we're trying to get to. We have I was just in Borrego Springs 3 weeks ago, which is sort of in between Palm Springs and San Diego, in the middle of nowhere. It took me a few hours to get there from here, from Anaheim, and we're talking with them about helping them. So, no, the remote aspect of it certainly has challenges, from a perspective of service as well. Getting there, how fast we can get there if an on-site technician is needed. But we do a lot of our diagnostics remotely. So we have direct connections with the chargers. And I think Model 1 can do that as well, unless they need to send techs on site. So,
yeah. It feels like from my perspective, it's like a no-brainer to at least consider what it would look like to have someone like Highland Fleet, support your rollout and at least evaluate the costs and see what the savings would be if you did it yourself and see if that risk is really worth it for you. But I think it's great to have the option, and it's really great that you guys are here helping folks out.
appreciate that.
So thanks for jumping on, Bradley and Alex. I think we'll close it out, and we'll put this recording up on our YouTube channel, and I think we'll try to also get an article out there to try to promote this, and hopefully we can get some folks to follow up with you guys and watch the videos on their own time. So thanks for jumping on today.
Thanks for
Thank
the
you.
opportunity. Appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. Appreciate it so much.
All right, take care.
Have a
Good to
great
see
rest
you.
of your week.